Today's plan is to rotate a bunch of letters by only rotating one thing. We're going to use nulls and expressions. It's reasonably simple, but it's some stuff that you might not have actually done before. Here we go. Try to get a two-view workspace or a two-view comp view here. The way to do that is to go down here to the right to select the view layout and to select two views horizontal. This will allow us to, get a better idea of what's going on. The view on the left, click in it here. You can see those little triangles show that you're actually in that view. Select, let's try custom view 3. Yeah, that'll show the Earth, and that shows the letters, which are now sitting in front of the Earth. By the way, this is a 3D situation we've got going on here because we have a camera, which is locked, and we also have a other bunch of layers that are also in 3D space. You should have a null layer. A null layer is a layer that is basically invisible. It's a kind of a tool that you use to control other stuff with. That null layer has been renamed expression control, and we have another null that has been named rotating null. This expression control null will contain an expression. And then we have a bunch of letters here that spell out universal. Okay? So let's get going. The first thing that we want to do is to add the expression to the null here. So we select the expression control null layer, go to Effect, Expression Controls, and Angle Control. And there it is. There's the angle control, and here's the angle applied to the expression control layer. So let's hit E for that layer to show the angle control. And let's show the stopwatch for the angle control. And we're going to be animating that in a minute. Now for the L layer, or the L letter, show the rotation property. Select it and then hit R. Show the rotation property and then Option click or Alt click on the Y rotation stopwatch. And you do this in order to make an expression. Don't click on anything yet, but you'll see there's an expression there. Basically, transform.y rotation is a kind of a holding pattern. It's a kind of a holder for an expression. We can type anything we want here. If we typed in 45, that would make the rotation 45 degrees. But we don't want to do that just yet. We want whatever is inside here, which is the rotation, to match whatever the angle of the expression control is here. So with this still highlighted, if it's not highlighted, like if you've done this, say, click in here, and that should highlight that. Grab this little thing that's called an expression pick whip in your L layer and drag it up to the angle control here. And then you see the expression that is now for the Y rotation of your L is this comp.layer expression control effect angle control angle. The Y rotation is expressed by the angle of the angle control effect of the layer that is called expression control in the composition last name, first name, C06, which just happens to be this comp. Okay, so let's just click in nothing there, and let's just change the angle here just for the heck of it. And we see that as we change the expression, the rotation of this null expression, actually, it causes the L to rotate. Now, why doesn't the L just rotate? Undo that, by the way. Why doesn't the L just rotate in place? Why does it rotate around this circle? Well, that's because the way that I set this up, you can thank me later, the way that I set up all these layers is that their center, their anchor point, is at the center of the globe. But let's make sure that our angle is back to 0, and then we will actually do some animating of it. But our expression isn't finished just yet, because we now need to account for all of these other letters that are supposed to spell the word universal. In order to make them all have a slightly different angle, because, well, the L needs to be over here and the U needs to be over there, we'll use a very, very useful expression and geeky property called index. That gives a different value for every layer. So place your cursor at the end of this expression, right here, and you type in asterisk index. And you hit, on a laptop, you'd hit function, enter. You want to return. You don't want to create a new line in the expression. So on my laptop, anyway, I hold down function and return in order to seal that expression. Now, the angle is still 0 here, which is okay. And that means that the Y rotation is still 0. By the way, when it's red here, that indicates that an expression is telling you what to do. But if I drag this, let's make that 10 there, so that the angle of the expression control is 10, we see that the Y rotation is not 10, but it's 40. That's because the rotation of the Y rotation of this layer, bear with me, the Y rotation of this layer is actually this angle times the index of the layer, which is 4. So this is 10 times 4. So theoretically, if we were to do this to the next layer, its rotation should be 10 times 5, and so on. Well, let's copy and paste this expression to the other layers. First thing is to select the Y rotation property, the thing that has the expression attached to it. Then go up to Edit and select Copy Expression Only. Next, let's hide this so that we can see all of the type layers. Let's select the other, not the L. Let's select the other type layers and select Edit, Paste, or just Command V. And you see what we have there. Let's go back to our expression control and hit E, and we'll see our angle control. Our angle is 10. But we see how, now as I animate just the expression, we see that the letters all behave in a particular way that is reflective of their index. So if we were to just hit R for the first 3 layers here, and let's set this to, I don't know, 10, we see that the L is at an angle of 40, the A is at an angle of 50, and the S is at an angle of 60, and so on down the line. This is good. This is what we want. This is the way that we are choosing to space out the letters. Okay? Now, once you've messed around enough like that, set the angle to 9. That should give you a decent spacing. But now we need to make these letters rotate as a group. So let's just Command A, select everything, and just cram them up there so that we've got room to look at stuff. Let's just move this up a bit. You may or may not have to do that. I just want more room down here. By the way, note how I've changed the colors. These layers actually came in as red layers like those, but I wanted to be able to find them faster, look at them faster, so I changed the color of them. In your preferences, you can choose that certain layers can come in at a particular color. So in order to make the layers rotate as a group, we're going to parent them to another layer. We're going to parent them to this rotating null. In other words, the rotating null will be the parent, and all these letters will be the children. Make sure that you've got the parent column visible here. If it's not visible, don't do this. If it's not visible, I'm just going to hide it there. If it's not visible, right-click or control-click on any column, header, so you get this drop-down menu. You get columns and choose parent. You want parent to be visible. Now let's select all of the type layers. Now let's drag the pick whip of any of those layers to the rotating null. See, so I chose any layer, dragged its pick whip up to the rotating null. And now we see the result of that is all of these layers have number 3, the rotating null, as their parent. Okay? Now then, just to test that, let's take the rotating null, hit R, and let's change the orientation right now, and we see they all move at once. They are now parented. So in this project, you're doing two things. You're using an expression to set the individual rotation of each of those letters to space them out, and you are using parenting to make all of the layers follow the rotating null. Okay, let's go back to 0 there. Now at time 0, set the Y rotation of the rotating null to 0. Set a keyframe. Boom. Now at time 3 seconds, see, 3, or you could type it in here, 0, 3, 0, 0 there. So at time 3, 0, 0, set the Y rotation of the rotating null to 285. Let's just preview that, see what we get. Now that's not quite right. At the beginning we want to see nothing here. So let's set the value at the beginning of the rotating null to be this value, whatever this is here, which is 114. One quick way to do that is to set a keyframe, delete the one that we didn't want, boom, and then drag this one, hold down Shift, pop, and drag it to the beginning. Let's see what we get then. There we go. Now we're going to do one more thing so that this is a little more interesting. We're going to do a bounce expression. And this is a canned expression. It's one that you can download. But in our situation, we're just going to, it should be included in your sources folder. We're going to make the universal, instead of just stop like that, it's going to overshoot a bit to the left, and then it's going to bounce, 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 and settle in at the middle. You can do that manually, or you can use an expression that uses physics. So let's select the rotating null, because that is the thing that we're going to be affecting. Go to Animation, Apply Animation Preset, and let's look for that one. Where is it? It should be in your sources folder, and it should be called Gray Machine Inertial Bounce.ffx. But I've made a mistake here. Don't continue. Hit cancel. Why? Because I just selected the layer. I didn't tell exactly what property we're going to apply that to. because if you don't select it, if you don't select a particular property like rotation, After Effects will select something else for you. The last time I tried this, it applied the expression to opacity, and I don't want that. So we have to be specific. Rather than select nothing, we have to select Y rotation specifically, then go to Animation, apply Animation Preset, and we find under Sources, there it is, Gray Machine Inertial Bounce.ffx. We hit Open, and what do we get from that? We get a bit of a bounce like that. Let's preview that. Yeah, isn't that lovely? Now, just so that you know what's going on under the hood, select the Y rotation. You'll see it has an expression applied to it, which means it goes red like that. Hit this little graph button here, and then hit this graph editor button, which makes the graph editor visible. Now we'll see that this is our first keyframe, and this is our second keyframe. So this represents the graph of the rotation keyframes that I have applied, which is, 114 degrees up to 285 degrees. No surprise here. But if we want to see the graph of what the expression actually does, you twirl down this, and then you go over to this graph here. It says this is the post-expression graph. And look at that, will you? So let's just zoom in a bit more, maybe zoom out a bit more. And this is what the expression is telling us to do. It's making this curve, which could be sinusoidal, it could be a damped curve. I forget what it's called, I apologize. But it actually tells us what it's doing. So the rotation is increasing a bit, and then it's decreasing, then it's increasing and decreasing and increasing and decreasing. Okay? That's what the expression does. And what it looks like is, let's hide the graph editor. What it looks like is actually that. Amplitude equals 1, frequency equals 2.0, decay equals 2.0, and then there's a bunch of fancy if-then-elses and stuff that you do not touch unless you know exactly what you want. If you do want to change the bounce, mess with these values. But for now, I'd leave it alone. Okay? Do one last preview.